What is the S&P? Everybody seems to talk about it, but really, do most people know what it is? Do they know that it's got an incredible impact to their financial well-being? Probably not. Hi there, my name is Kenner French. I'm with Vast Solutions Group, the nation's premier tax and financial engineering firm for entrepreneurs. We work with clients all over the country, from New York, Florida, Southern California to Washington State. Sometimes clients comment on the S&P, although we've come to find out really very few people know enough about it. Now, did you know that nearly $10 trillion in assets are benchmarked to the S&P 500 composite index, including about 3.5 trillion in index assets? The S&P is ubiquitous. It is constantly referenced in financial and non-financial media, and we may compare the return of our own investments to its performance. As the index represents approximately 80% of the value of the U.S. equity market, or about 80% of what's called U.S. market capitalization, it may be worthwhile to gain a little bit better understanding of its structure and its workings. Now, breaking down the benchmark, the S&P 500, as we know it today, was introduced in March of '57. It tracks the market value of about 500 large firms that are listed on the NASDAQ Composite and the New York Stock Exchange. The S&P is structured to include companies from across the sectors of the business community in an effort to represent the breadth of the U.S. economy. There are a number of criteria a company must meet to be considered for inclusion in the index. A firm must be a U.S. company publicly listed on a major equity market, have a market capitalization of $6.1 billion or greater, and have at least 250,000 shares traded in each of the last 6 months prior to consideration for index membership by a company called Standard & Poor's. A company must also be financially viable. A ratio in its annual dollar value traded to its float-adjusted market cap must be greater than 1. Now, the S&P has changed over time. Companies have been gradually removed and added over the past number of years. At the benchmark's 50th anniversary in 2007, just 86 of the original components remained. Subsequent mergers and acquisitions have reduced the number even further. Right now, about 20% of the weight of the S&P is held in 10 companies, and the performance of tech shares influences the benchmark and its return, perhaps more than any other factor. Something to think about. The index has been altered through the years in response to changes in the economy, etc. Across several decades, the makeup of the index's various sectors has differed along with their weightings. This leads to a frequent update for the equity funds that aim to replicate the index. In order to maintain the replication, they may quickly need to buy or sell shares of corporations that are being added or removed. Something to think about again. Keep in mind that amounts in mutual funds and ETFs are subject to fluctuation in value and market risk. Shares, when redeemed, may be worth more or less than their original cost. Equity funds are sold only by prospectus, so please consider their charges, risks, expenses, and investment objectives carefully before investing. A prospectus containing this and other information about investment can be obtained from your financial professional. Now, you have to read it carefully, etc., before you invest money. It should also be noted that investors cannot invest directly in an index generally. Also, index performance is not indicative of past performance of a particular investment, and past performance does not guarantee future results. Investment choices designed to replicate any index may not perfectly track it. That's important, and the returns will be reduced by fees and expenses. Now, is this an important element to think about, this S&P 500? The answer to that is yes. Whether you're putting money into the market, large companies, small companies, etc., the answer to that is yes. We at Vast Solutions Group can help you. I should note, we don't specifically have a securities license. We do not do any work as it results in a securities transaction. We have strategic alliances with companies that do. Now, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we do, again, the nation's premier tax and financial engineering firm for entrepreneurs, please look us up on the web at www.vastsolutionsgroup.com or give us a call, 888-808-VAST or 8278. We'd be happy to help you. Now, if you've seen value in this, please contact us. Refer us on to a friend. We're here to help you and or your friend, colleague, loved one. Now, as I mentioned, we have clients all over the country, but our number one core belief is to help investors, retirees, etc. Thank you for watching this video. Once again, Kenneth French, and it's indeed been a pleasure.